Welcome to The Debaters Season 2, a debate game show for high school students here in Vietnam. Produced and broadcasted by VTV, National Educational Channel of Vietnam, and British University, Vietnam. I'm your host, Dustin Xavier. Climate change. This is not a new topic. All countries all over the world are affected by climate change somehow, and everyone is discussing this. And students all over Vietnam, I'm assuming, are learning a lot more about climate change and how things are going to be affected in the future. Today's topic is quite interesting, and I'm very curious to hear what the students have to say.
If we don't adapt, the consequences will be disastrous.
We need the voices of young people.
We are also the ones that are going to face this crisis, for the rest of our lives probably.
This is the battle of our lifetime.
Significantly more money and funding is needed.
And use this summit as a turning point to create a more prosperous, greener and fairer world.
So the task ahead is vast. We will need to shift the immense power of the market away from destruction and towards sustainability.
The future is now.
Tackle this great challenge of climate change, we need all hands on deck.
The leaders today have the power to shape a better future for our planet.
我们生活在同一个地球村。
Il en va de notre responsabilité à tous et de notre responsabilité à chacun.
2021 be the year that we fight back.
Certainly collaboration is a key part of this.
The motion for today, that climate change movements should prioritize constructive policy proposals over criticism and obstruction of current policies. We're going to jump right into it, but we got to introduce the students.
Well, from the judges' comment, we believe that we should expand our cases from speaker to speaker, and in addition to that, we should make deeper rebuttals that penetrates deeper into the opponent's point rather than just touching on the surfaces of their arguments. We have made extensive preparation for this motion. All of our speakers have already prepared their cases and are working it out with the mentors right now.
I think this motion is quite familiar with students at the moment because I think this topic actually have already discussed a lot of topic related to environment, related to climate change. However, I really see that they don't really have a lot of statistics. They don't really have a lot of research. So I really want my team to read more to figure about number and real solution, real evidence in order to put into their cases. And second of all, I really want them to actually put more attention in terms of how to engage with the other side of the house in the best case and in the bad ways.
Because nowadays we have lots of access to new information and how other people in the world has also are trying to solve this problem. So I think that we are able to come up with more creative solutions, and we can also learn from famous people that have already followed these movements.
I think that with the social movements, with climate change and any other social problems, there's always have the new understanding and new perspective of the people. I think Vanilla has the same preparations like TNHH. We also send them and watch a lot of videos related to the protests, related to how the young are reacting to what the climate change problems, and therefore they have more understanding.
And we cannot have the debate without the lovely judges. And also, we have a very special guest tonight, Elizabeth Ackerman, the ambassador of the Netherlands. So audience, contestants, judges, please give her a round of applause. So Elizabeth, you're here in the studio. You can see we have a huge audience. The contestants are ready. The judges are ready. What do you think about this?
I'm very excited. It's a really great pleasure and an honor to meet the debaters today.
because I really believe that the debaters of today are the leaders of tomorrow.
Yes.
And when it comes to a topic as climate change, it is very important that we have leadership. And that might be one of your stronger arguments. Climate change is a man-made problem, so we also are looking for man-made solutions. And the Netherlands, like Vietnam, is a delta country, and we are heavily affected by climate change. And we need innovative and structural solutions, and we find them both in the Netherlands as well as in Vietnam in agriculture and water management. So I'm here to listen carefully to the solutions and the ideas and the pragmatism in the debate, and I hope that I can bring that back to our agenda, both the Vietnamese and Dutch agenda, but also to the global agenda that will be discussed in January in the Netherlands during the Global Climate Adaptation Summit, in which Vietnam will play a very important role.
Ooh.
Because in the Mekong Delta, you briefly referred to
Yes.
it, Dustin, there is a huge impact of climate change that affects the livelihood and livability of the area.
Yeah.
So I hope to take back good ideas, good suggestions, and I look forward to these young, smart, and eager girls and boys, men and women, to enter into an interesting competition. And thank you once again for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Contestants, judges, everyone is also very happy to have you here. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. Contestants, hopefully you guys don't feel more pressured, because she's very eager to hear what you have to say. So it's going to be okay. Without further ado, let me introduce the first contestants of round one. From the proposition team, Team Vanilla, please welcome Lê Đồng Quân. From the opposition team, Team The Champions, please welcome Nguyễn Điệu An. All right, Quân, I'm going to start with you. The first debate of tonight, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling less nervous because it's this the second time I'm here at the stage.
But in the audience, Elizabeth right there, she is watching. She's very curious to see how the future of Vietnam is going to be. Does that make you more nervous or less nervous?
Now you mentioned about it, I felt more nervous.
Okay, I'm not trying to make you feel more nervous. I'm just saying there's people in the audience watching. But it's okay, you're gonna do great. All right, hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm a little bit nervous, I guess.
But less nervous because it's the second debate, right?
No.
No? Why not?
Because this time I'm from opposition side, so I have to do rebuttals, and that's hard.
Is that harder?
Yeah.
Okay. But I know you're going to do a phenomenal job, both of you guys. So let me explain the rules for the first round. First round, you have 3 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is not open. Proposition team, you are going to go first. Opposition team, you will be going second. Without further ado, let the debates begin.
Ice is melting in the poles. Sea level is rising and flooding many cities, leading to many disastrous problems. It is a global urgency that needs to be resolved in a collaborative way between the government and the movement. That is why we believe that this motion will benefit the movement. Some characterization. 1. Climate change movement is a collective of non-governmental organizations engaged in activism related to the issue. 2. Constructive policy proposals or supportive feedback policy which helps identify solutions to areas of weakness that the policy may have. It has a tendency to be a positive tool to address the issues. 3. Criticism and obstruction of current policies or disapproval of the movement based on the perceived faults and flaws in the policy. In addition, they will prevent the policies. These will have a tendency to be harsh and hostile from the community. 4. Prioritization is what we want to emphasize in this debate. We'll still include criticism within the society, but only a small margin. And we will advocate mainly by constructive proposing for the better. 5. Current policies are supporting the build of new and effective solutions. Coming to this debate, first claim, constructive proposals are more effective in changing the policy. To give out the most effective cases, we have the comparisons. We agree that constructive and criticism can identify the problems of the policy, but constructive has 2 more merits. 1, they can propose new ideas to resolve the problems based on the identification of the flawed policy. the collaboration of two will create a harmony between both parties. Therefore, the final decision will be reached faster and the policy will benefit all people. 2. Meaningful discussion throughout will occur between two parties. Therefore, the adaptability of the policy will be much better with the erratic change of the climate problems. Moving on to the criticism part, as mentioned, they have a tendency to be harsh and hostile. Why? Because it involves politicians and movements clashing about the policy. Consequently, the public will inevitably be distracted from the problem itself. They will focus on attacking the arguments rather than proposing true improvements. This toxic environment will lead to no fruitful outcome, as the mass criticism from the movement will disincentivize the researcher and the policymakers to further work in the policy. For example, Green New Deal, which is a policy turning harmful materials that generate energy to renewable source like solar energy. The policy was criticized by many because the consumptions of time and money, even though they have good intentions. With the constructive feedback, it can make an improvement, such as how to reduce the cost and time so that they can be implemented, leading to a greener world. That's why I believe we win this debate. Thank you.
Coming to some rebuttals, firstly on your side, you said that the discussion will be more meaningful and faster. However, we believe that criticism will deliver more effective solutions after that. And then your team also said that with constructive proposal, there will be harmony between both parties. However, we believe that that cannot always be gained, right? Because there must always be a trade-off, especially on your side, that you will be attacked by activists, and on our side, we will not have peace between the two parties of the policymakers and the activists. Now onto our case. Currently, there are thousands of existing policies for climate change, but they aren't effective. This can be seen through previous failures of the Kyoto Protocol in 1997 or the Paris Agreement in 2016. But why are these policies failing? A. Policymakers don't restrict these policies and often lean towards economic and political benefits rather than environmental issues, which creates imbalance between the two aspects. B. The reason why these policymakers care more about their economic and political interests is because 1. They're aiming for industrialization, and we believe that no country would immediately sacrifice their economy or politics just to solve the environment issue. Second, right now there are world leaders in power nations who, through corruption or lobbying, give industries beneficial policies instead of environmental policies that can harm them. And that is why, as opposition, we want to prove the criticism and obstruction can pressure the government to create policies that balance environmental problems and other issues. So how will our side reduce the climate change? We believe the problem can be solved through 3 levels. Firstly, individual action and awareness. Second, national and company action. And third, all countries, especially industrialized nations, actions. So how might obstruction lead to more media attention and awareness? Well, we believe that criticism and obstruction is controversial, impactful, and brings emotions. We can see this through young activists, Greta Thunberg, Jeremy Foster, or Lily Gardner, who have received millions of people's attention. There are also campaigns and marches like Fridays for Future or 0 Hour campaign, and therefore it is also likely to gain more public attention, media, and news coverage. Besides, because people are reminded of climate change so frequently, it helps raise individual awareness and increase urgency. And that is important because A, it creates individual action immediately rather than waiting for any other policies to be passed, and B, people are willing to follow government policies strictly. However, why do we believe that proposition will not gain more awareness is because just by proposing new policies won't be enough, right? It is less controversial, so it will gain less attention and less people will be aware and see the urgency of the climate change issue, including the fact that some people are not even aware that climate change exists. And therefore, this will result in less people following the policy strictly. So in conclusion, we don't believe that waiting for policies is the best way for combating climate change, but rather than that, it should start immediately from individual actions, and criticism and obstruction is the only way for us to create any difference in an individual's mindset. Thank you.
All right, finally, first round, it's over. So judges, actually looking at the judges right now, they don't look as upset. Hugh especially, he's smiling, Ewing is smiling. I think it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Ewing, please.
I think the first round went pretty well. From the prop side, I appreciate that you bring up the Green New Deal. I think that's going to be a nice example and model for the future arguments on your side. I like the the fact that you gave a lot of, like a very strong case setup, preparing for the future's argument. However, I felt like when you argue for something, it's a little bit jumping of ideas instead of stopping and explain very, very clearly for audience to understand like why it happened in a particular way. For example, you say like, oh, when you have constructive criticism, it's basically going to have to bring up new ideas and it's going to make things faster than if you try to obstruct the ideas. For the upside, I think, to be very honest, the rebuttal wasn't working this time. I felt like you were trying to address the point and then you didn't explain to it. You simply said that, oh, what you say is not true, but there was no explanation whatsoever. So it cannot be credited as rebuttals for me. Maybe next time your teams can try preempt. It means predict what the opponent team will say and comes up with a lot of scenarios, what they're gonna say and what you're gonna say. And it's going to be very helpful, especially for the first speakers of the negative side. Now, for your argument today, I think you spent a lot of time trying to build up the case setup as well, and then it kind of overlapped with your argument. So maybe in the next time, trying to like minimize a little bit with your case setup and trying to flesh out more idea with the arguments, because right now your arguments still seem quite simple comparing to what the proposition has given me. So nevertheless, my 10 point will go to the team that I think has provided me more material, more contribution by far, which is the proposition side.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ing. Stuart, hi.
Hi. A good first round from both teams, to be honest. I think, as we mentioned earlier, it's really important to state out the ideas that you're both coming up with, to then allow for further development from your teammates in the subsequent rounds. Kwon, from the proposition side, you did this incredibly well. However, I think, again, some of them were kind of talked about very, very quickly, and that analysis at this point wasn't quite there, but I'm really sure that your teammates are going to pick that up and help develop that in the further rounds. Some of the ideas, for me, still needed a bit more expansion, especially this notion of, promoting harmony. I need to understand why, constructive proposals do necessarily promote harmony more so than the other side, and why is harmony effective? That's kind of the other part of that. And for the opposition side, for me, what I like about this side is you're thinking about the stakeholders in terms of it's not just effective in terms of the government's representatives or the politicians who are making these, but actually this notion of creating something that's controversial then empowers the people and makes more agency from the people. And I want to see how you explain and further develop how important that is in the rest of your debate. For me, actually based largely on that last point there, I felt that for the most potential in terms of the strength of the point, I'm going to go for the opposition side, actually.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. And Hugh, you guys, right now he's happy. This is a good Hugh, so it's
this is a good.
It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yes, this is a good Hugh for a good reason, because
okay. See?
It's hard to give my 10 point to one team for a good reason. I think with the proposition team, very nice case setup. I think you identify all the keyword of this debate motion, especially the word prioritize. I think that is a very strong keyword to actually analyze, and I want to use this opportunity to make sure that everyone focus on this keyword of prioritize. I kind of like your structure because I think your first argument is about its more effectiveness, and you kind of lay out 3 reasons why it is more effective. I think the 3 reasons are strong enough to support for the first argument of more effectiveness. With the opposition team, I do agree that you are a little bit rushing towards the rebuttal, and I agree because if I were in your shoes, I could have problem within a few seconds come up with a rebuttal for those strong arguments as well. However, when you go to your argument and analysis, I feel like there's such richness in your argument and analysis, and you are actually start to look at multi-stakeholders already. The other team has not identified the stakeholders in this debate, but you have already identified, like, they include government, activism, individuals, and corporations. I think because you focus on individuals, I wish, and I'm expecting that the second debaters and the third one will come up with more stakeholders, multi-stakeholder analysis, so that you have a holistic analysis of this one. One is very strong reasoning and structure, and one is like an enriching of like analysis. And that is the reason why it's very hard for me to give my 10 points to which team. Okay, I want to give my 10 points to the team because this is the first round, and each person has to do two parts. One is case setup and argument. One is rebuttal and arguments. On the argument side, I really want to give the 10 points to you, but he's done both of his part slightly better. That's why my 10 points go to him. But you guys also have like strong ground to work with, okay? So work better next time.
All right, thank you, judges. All right, so you got 20 points. I think you're feeling good. I see a bigger smile on your face right now. Kind of? Yeah. Why kind of?
There's still 3 more rounds, so yeah, I'm still nervous for the other team.
Hugh is smiling and happy right now, and he's having a difficult time giving the 10 points. It's usually the opposite. He's like, I don't know who to give the 10 points to. It wasn't very good. I'm disappointed. So take that as a huge compliment, okay? Huge compliment for both of you. So contestants, thank you so much. Please return back to your seats. So currently, right now, the proposition team, Team Vanilla, they have 20 points. They are leading the opposition team, the champions, by 10 points. However, it's just the first round. We still have 3 more rounds, and we'll get back to you right after the break.
Consequently, the public will inevitably be distracted from the problem itself. They will focus on attacking the arguments rather than proposing true improvements.
It is less controversial, so it will gain less attention, and less people will be aware and see the urgency of the climate change issue.
You simply say that, oh, what you say is not true, but there was no explanation whatsoever. So it cannot be credited as rebuttals for me.
Welcome back to the second round of the debaters. Without further ado, let's jump into the second round. From Team Vanilla, please welcome Lê Minh Thu Giang. From the champions, please welcome Pham Lê Thái Anh. Okay, girls, hi. I'm gonna start over here with Vanilla though, so hold on one second. How are you feeling?
A little bit nervous, as usual.
As usual, of course, I'm even nervous too. Yeah, I think the judges are nervous, the audience is probably nervous as well, so it's a very normal thing. But I know you're gonna do well, right?
Thank you.
I see a big smile on your face. Why are you smiling?
Well, probably because part of me is confident with my idea, but this smile is also like covering something that you will be able to discover after my speech.
Okay, and I think the judges over there will also be able to discover it as well. But for you girls, the second round is a little different from the first round. You have 4 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is entirely open. Proposition team, you will be going first. Opposition team, you will be going second. Girls, do you understand?
Yes.
Awesome. Let the debate begin.
First off, some rebuttals. The first speaker of the opposition team said that people are reminded of climate change every day. Therefore, their awareness will be raised. But what if they don't have enough care and information about climate change in order to make their awareness about climate change be uplifted? If we want to raise awareness, we must educate people, not just portray meaningless arguments about climate change on media. Stepping into our case, we have the prioritization of constructive policy proposals over criticism and obstruction of current policies will encourage the legislative to proceed. The legislative is the entity that make and enforce laws for a country or a city. When lobbyists propose these policies to senators, they will have the chance to be contemplated at Congress. They will put a strain on the government. Therefore, there will be more validation. However, when these policies have flaws not ready to be implanted, they will be ignored by the authorities. Climate change activists' choice to proceed their movement will depend on the reaction of the society. Donald Trump thinks climate change is a hoax and not real. Similarly, this is the viewpoint of a group of people. Hence, when a policy is put forward, it depends on the public sentiment and awareness for it to stay. When all climate change movements receive criticism, people will find more reasons to bash and boycott them. In contrast, when they receive constructive proposals, they will furthermore develop and put a dent on the way towards the minimization of the consequence. of climate change. For example, the country of Netherlands, which is a country that is under the sea level, has done a good job of putting forward constructive proposals. In this case, people will obviously see this and their awareness will be raised. When it uplifted awareness, people will unite as a whole to push away the impacts of climate change. When there's a constructive policy proposal, climate change activists will file a manuscript towards the corporations or polluters. People can compromise and find common ground, and therefore we can get the best out of the situation, and therefore it will be easier to bring about change. And if there is a constructive policy proposal and is popularized enough, it will become a media catchphrase. For example, the Green New Deal created by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Therefore, it will have more impact on the voters, and the politicians will contemplate including these proposals in their campaigns, and we can raise awareness towards climate change. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to provide some point of contention to the idea coming from side proposition. First of all, you tells us how people would rather use this as an opportunity to attack individuals and politicians rather than criticizing their policies. However, we tell you that this is not true because you seem to misunderstand the concept of criticism. Criticism is not just about throwing random hatred or exalting words at people. It is also about being able to reason themselves. Why do we have fields like movie criticism? So that apart from like people can know more about the movie industry, then it is also for the filmmakers in order to improve for better. And of course, this movie critics would also criticize with their analysis, and the same thing would happen to the environmental policies, which means it is very less likely that people would put hatred on these politicians. But the second idea, when you tell us that you would rather balance between like the new constructive proposal and the criticism, however, we tell you that that is already against the emotion because you as proposition have to prioritize one thing over another, which means that you are going for a very soft and ineffective case for today. But third of all, and the most important idea that we heard from your side of the house is when you tell us that we wouldn't be able to educate people through meaningless arguments. However, we tell you that this is not true at all because arguments with very descriptive and emotional language would be able to get more attention from public, and from that kind of attention, then people would actually have the opportunity to like know about it and then change their opinions. But even if arguments do not work, then we also tell you that your proposals would not work as well because government, why do they need to care about this individual's like idea? Why they would not have that incentives to do so, right? But now, moving on to our idea. As my first speaker has already addressed that there are 3 levels in reducing climate change and has already proven how criticism and obstruction will work on an individual level, in my speech, I will be proving how it will work on a national and global level through our second practical idea about the effectiveness of future policies. Now, one thing that these politicians care about is that they care about their power, how to maintain their current powers and how to gain even more. And in order to do so, they need that votes from the majority of people. And only on our side of the house, when we get that public attention, when all people step up and criticize and obstruct, meaning that they are unhappy about the current policies that they have to follow, then it would be able to put pressures on the corporations, which is the main cause of the climate change, to change in order to keep their reputation, but at the same time, put pressure on government to create new policy with tangible impacts in order to gain more votes and maintain their political powers for the next following years. An example could be Callum Benson, a 15-year-old activist whose protests helped ban fracking in Maryland and reduce fossil fuel in Washington, D.C. But B, countries where voting system actually works are most of the time industrialized country and big countries like US and England, so they're already very impactful on their own. So if they actually change their policies, and would create motivation and pressure for all the countries to follow in order to maintain the international relations with these powerful nations. Meanwhile, on proposition, what does government's policy look like? The current policies are, whereas like politicians have not prioritized climate change issues, but instead they focus on the economic development and industrialization. Meanwhile, if you propose new policies, there would be 2 problems. Number 1, proposals from these climate change movements are less likely to focus on solving climate change rather than like even considering other important factors. But number 2, most environmental activists and people in charge of these movements are young people. So A, politicians would not consider this proposal in a very serious manner, but furthermore, they could also refuse the proposal since they have no incentive and urgency in order to like influence them to change. And as your proposal is very low impact from the beginning, and no one would even care if they reject it at all. But C, even if the policy passed in a very acceptable and equal conditions, then only the small group of people who propose will not be that impactful impactful and cannot put pressures on many nations in order to change and follow it. And when a policy is not very impactful on a global scale, then it could not create much changes about the climate change situation at all. And therefore, only on side opposition could the policies actually be effective and put into use by not only individuals, corporations, regions, but also the majority of nations. And thus is the only case whereas the climate change movements can successfully accomplish their mission of stopping climate change. For those reasons, we are more than proud to oppose.
You talk so fast. I'm blown away. I'm sitting back there, I'm just like, whew. I'm very impressed. I don't even know if I can do that, and I speak English, so wow. The judges, they look at more of the content rather than the speed, but for me it was wow. I'm just gonna get straight to the judges right now, and I'll talk to the both of you right afterwards. Judges, Hugh, we'll start off with you this time.
On the content, I think with the rebuttals of the proposition team, yes, I see your point when you say that awareness does not necessarily lead to action, and if the public does not have enough information and doesn't get sufficient education, valid point. But I think you jump a little bit too far and think that and make a statement that all the criticism are meaningless. I think that is not a very smart move because this is about prioritization. So both sides of the coin do have merits. We just need to see which side weigh much more heavier instead of saying the other side is just meaningless message. I think that is something that we need to be a little bit careful with our reasoning and argument, right? This is where I start to have a little bit struggle in seeing what is the cut-off line between your rebuttal and your argument, the second argument of your team. I think it's kind of blend in and there and back and forth between the two. So it's very hard for me to see clearly what is the punching argument, second argument of your team. With the proposition team, I think you do, yes, your rebuttals is not perfect, but I think you pick on the assumption or the statement of the other team about like meaningless does not mean like trash argument, but criticisms can be based on very strong reasoning as well. So I think they address that feedback quite well. When it comes to the arguments, I appreciate that you start to go on to like stakeholders, like the impact on corporation, the impact on government with the voting system, the impact on other countries that have relationship with these government as well. It's kind of like a chain reaction. So I think that is where it's getting interesting for me. But I feel like with each of that one, I need like example. That's why I feel like I don't feel like satisfied enough, right? I give my 10 points to the team that do a little bit better on the development of argument. And in this particular case, my 10 point by slight margin goes to the opposition team.
Okay. See, the talking fast wasn't so bad. Still got the points. All right, Stuart.
I'm not sure that you breathed through through all of that time.
Same thing.
But again, you both brought a lot of energy to this round. I think, Zhang, yours may be a little bit short. You had a little bit of time at the end there where you could have expanded on some of those ideas. And I think the kind of structure that QUÄN put out for us on his very first turn, I think there's still quite a lot of areas there that still could have been developed in your turn. And there was time to do that, but it fell a little bit short. I did like the fact that you, in your rebuttal, you mentioned that, okay, we don't just need awareness. Awareness doesn't effectively lead, I mean, it can do, but we need to have a greater variables involved with that. So I do like the fact that you kind of picked out their idea from their first speaker. For the opposition side, Taeyang, I really like the idea that you questioned this notion of criticism from the other side. And I think that actually your questioning of their definition of it and the questioning of their kind of acceptance of what criticism is was a really strong point for you to start off on. For me, though, I still think in terms of the development of points and the amount of content really that you provided that did hit a lot of strong points. It's going to be for the opposition side. Taeyang, you got my vote for this one.
All right, thank you, Stuart. Wait, you have the thumbs up.
Well, I had a thumb up because I thought that the op side had very interesting rebuttals and she did try to lengthen it. But honestly, my point has not been decided yet because of not a very good reason though. I think in this particular debate, you guys are trying, it's just like a race, like which team can color more into this particular picture. This is a blank canvas and you guys just try to color for your team more. And the problem is that you lack of the details. You lack of the small explanation that helps people, an average person, understand why things are more likely to happen in that particular way than on the other way. Because in this particular debate, as we talk about comparison, right, there are two very important factors in comparison. First of all, you have to show us the unique component that your team has, that the opponent team doesn't have, in order to make people to draw the conclusion that because of that unique component, it is more likely to happen than your case, because sometimes something you said in the debate in here can happen on both sides. The second factor in the comparison is that you have to consider what happened on their side of the house as well. It means that if what they say are right, are true, then why on your side it is still more important, more beneficial than that. So I think that that's what makes a comparison really, really good. And I think that both of the arguments today lack of those two factors. So my 10 points today would go to the team that I think have answered for me more questions, even though not very satisfactorily, but more questions than the other team, which is the proposition side.
Ooh. Interesting turn of events. So, all right, Zhang Oi, 30 points. I think you're pretty happy right now.
Not actually, because I'm kind of nervous for my teammates.
But I couldn't help but notice you mentioned the Netherlands when you were addressing your speech. And Elizabeth got really happy. I saw the smile on her face. She's like, yes, the Netherlands, she's talking about it. So you earned some brownie points. So you got some extra points from Elizabeth right there. Okay. But right now, 30 points. How are you feeling? You guys are tied.
Yeah, that's what makes the match interesting.
Absolutely. Because the last debate was so-so, not on this show, the last show. But tonight, I'm happy with how things are going so far. And it's tied. So this is a close game right now. So girls, thank you so much. Please return back to your seats. Thank you. We just finished the second debate, and currently the teams are tied. 30 for Team Vanilla and 30 for the champions. This is good. This is getting really good. And we do have the third debate, but right after the break.
When they receive constructive proposals, they will furthermore develop and put a dent on the way towards the minimization.
Even if the policy passed in a very acceptable and equal conditions, then only the small group of people who propose will not be that impactful and cannot put pressures on many nations in order to change and follow it.
I think, Zhang, yours may be a little bit short. You had a little bit of time at the end there where you could have expanded on some of those ideas.
Welcome back to Debaters Season 2. Currently, right now, we are going to begin the third round. The teams are tied 30-30, so things are getting very interesting, and this debate right now is extremely important. From Team Vanilla, please welcome Lei Huyen Tao. From the team, the champions, please welcome Wang Min Nam. I'm going to start over here with Tao. Tao Oi, are you going to win this match?
I'll try my best.
Well, try your best. So what does that mean? Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to hear. Nam Oi, you going to win this match?
I can't say for sure, but hope so.
Okay, I hope you both win, but that's not going to happen because only one person can win this. So for the third round, it is similar to the second round. You have 4 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is entirely open. Proposition team, you will begin. Opposition team, you will go second. Okay, let the debate begin.
We're here to strongly support the motion that climate change movements should prioritize constructive policy proposals over criticism and obstruction of current policies. First up, some rebuttals. The opposition side has stated that obstructive criticism will put pressure on government so that they can improve their policies because it will gain attention. However, we believe that obstructive criticism can only attract more outsiders to involve in these activities, but it will disincentivize the policymakers themselves. Policymakers want a fruitful discussions. They want constructive advice to improve the policy. Even if obstructive criticism gain public attention, people with the belief that climate change is a hoax will use this as a foundation and the incentive to further provide hostile criticism and to bash those policies rather than provide actual feedback on how to improve policies. Furthermore, people that are indifferent to climate change will be lost in information. Thus, they tend to focus on the argument itself rather than focusing on our main problem, which is climate change. Firstly is our positive. And next one to compare the positive and negative impacts on both sides of the house and why in our side the positive outweigh the negative impacts and why we should win this debate. First off, the positive impacts. Our first speaker has stated that it would disincentivize policymakers to propose new policy. Thus, they will refuse to provide effective ideas to improve current policies. And the policies won't be improved and there won't be new creative and constructive policies to help partially solve the problems, which is to combat climate change. And this problem is fundamental purpose of the climate change movement. And we take this as an example. If in a debate, the judge only criticizes instead of providing a constructive feedback, then the debaters will be unlikely to accept this criticism. And we want the debaters to improve, that they need to listen, to argue effectively and to change the mindset from those constructive comments and feedback. Next one is that in our side, we believe that a significant level of constructive policy will have more impact and policymakers will have more information and constructive alternative for them. Thus, it is easier for them to make comparison and easier to adjust current policies. And both sides of the house can cause government and policymakers to adjust the policy. However, we believe that only on our side, strong materials and information can be provided that's effective and easier for them to adjust the current policy. And next one, that although in our side, our way of improving policies are lack of emotion. However, we believe that we are able to gain positive attention from government. Government and policymakers always want the best for their citizens. And in the other side, however, the only attention they can gain is a negative one. People, the outsiders, the public will also see you guys as someone who went wild, who were aggressive about the problem, and that it will not help improve the policy and it will not help improve the current situation. For the reasons being provided above, we believe that this motion must stand. Thank you.
I'll divide my speech into 3 parts. First, I will give rebuttals to the point that team proposition has brought to the table. Next, I will summarize and also give compare and contrast between the 2 points that the 2 teams have made today. And finally, I will point out the clashes and which side have won those clashes. First, rebuttals. Your sides have completely disregarded the points that my second speaker have made about how criticism does not mean pure insult, but can also mean pointing out flaws and helping those people in charge fix the problems. And so when you say that by criticizing, we are disincentivizing lawmakers and making the situation only worse, you are completely disregarding my second team's rebuttals. Therefore, we believe that our side can still create constructive criticism of the problems and make them better. Next, you say that by criticizing the current policies of the government, we will cause misinformation caused by climate deniers. However, my team believes that this is not a problem unique on our side. On your side, you are pushing policies that combat climate change. So climate change deniers will also attack your side too. And so this is a problem that is not unique to my side. And so we believe that this should not be discussed. Moving on to the comparison between 2 teams. First, on our side of the house, we have
proven to you that our case will lead to increased public awareness and a bigger collective effort between corporations, government, and individuals, which at the end of the day will play a major factor in combating climate change. On Team Proposition, in their best case scenario, we have proven to you that they will only attract the effort of individuals and government, not corporations, which will lead to a significantly weaker effort in combating climate change. On the side of Team Proposition, we have proven to you that their policy proposal is highly unlikely to be passed in the first place because of public ignorance. And even if those policies are passed, they will still lead to a less beneficial outcome compared to our own, because those policies that they push will at the most be passed at the national level, whereas on our side, we focus on increasing awareness worldwide as well, which at the end of the day will be an action of an international coalition, not a single country, that will make a difference when it comes to combating climate change. Finally, climate activists are comprised majority of young people because they understand that climate change will directly affect them, like my second speaker has said. Therefore, the Proposition Team's policy proposal will not be viewed seriously by world governments simply because of the fact that majority of them will not have a deep scientific background and thus will not be taken seriously. So their policies are highly unlikely to be adopted in the first place. Now I move on to the clashes. The first clash in this debate is which side can benefit all the stakeholders, such as the public, individual, corporations, and the world as a whole. On our side of the house, we have proven to you that our case will raise more public awareness of global warming, which means people will become more aware of the harms that global warming causes on them, and not just say, oh, it's a small problem, it won't affect me, I won't care. And finally, outside of the house is the only one in this debate that can form a feasible international coalition to fight against climate change, whereas they only focus on the national, singular country level. The second and final clash in this debate is which side can effectively combat climate change, which on our side of the house have proven to you that we raise more awareness about the problem. We create potential pressures to solve the problems, and we have the capability and feasibility to create a global coalition to combat climate change, while Team Proposition has not been able to prove that they will achieve a global coalition. Because of all the reasons above, I believe that my team has truly deserved this win of the debate. Thank you for listening.
All right, judges. Okay, I'm going to start with you because you have the thumbs up right in front of you.
I mean, in this round, teams play pretty safe. For the offside, I can see that you try really hard in order to, rebut, try to defend for your teams, trying to fill in the gap that your team made was lacking, try to bring up the uniqueness. I think at some point it worked, but sometimes it was a little bit blurry and it lacks a little bit explanation. For example, when you talk about, how criticism and I understand the part when your teammate brought up the ideas about criticism. It's not only about, talking bad about people, it's also pointing out the flaws and can make things better. But I also need to understand how criticism can actually making things better. Like that very small step, but if you put it there, it's gonna make everything become crystal clear and people can absorb the information easier. For the proposition side today, I think proposition side, you try really hard in comparing between the two teams, and I think some of the comparison works. As in the comparison that I appreciate the most is when you talk about how your team actually going to provide people with strong material, and it's going to be people gonna be less lost in the information storm. And I think that is a very, very nice idea when you point out what is wrong in their team. But also I question why your team particularly can give the people better information. There is always a little bit lacking in each of the case in here. So that makes the decision become very, very hard. In this turn, my decision will boil down to the team that basically can explain to me a little bit clearer about the uniqueness on their side, and the comparison is a little bit clearer for me. That my 10 point will go to the proposition side.
Ooh, all right. Okay, Stuart.
Very, very good third round from both of you. I'll start with the opposition side. I do like your attempt to use an analogy in there, using the debaters actually as your analogy. I think, however, it fell a little bit short in what you were trying to achieve there, and I think actually the stretch of comparing that to the issues that we've got at hand here in terms of the notion of providing criticism and constructive feedback, I didn't quite see that kind of match up personally. So I think it was a good attempt at using analogy to exemplify your ideas, but for me it fell short a little bit. And I also, I do, although I want to believe it, the idea of government and policymakers wanting the best for the public and wanting the best for the climate, as much as I do want to believe that, I find I'm a bit skeptical of that concept, and I think actually you didn't provide me enough support to really believe the idea. For Ming Nam, you put out some really, really strong ideas, and then with the clashes, you kind of exemplified where the clashes were, but then there were some kind of repeated ideas for both of those parts. I did really like the fact that your opening rebuttal was this constant kind of avoidance or misunderstanding of the word of criticism, because that hadn't really been addressed, and so I'm glad that you brought that up in your final round. The part that I liked was the impact on the international level. I think that actually that was the strongest point that you made in that final round, that the other team is kind of stuck at the national level, whereas yours has a higher opportunity and of actually reaching the international level. And on this debate topic, that's what's probably going to make more impact. So for me, looking at both of the sides, it's difficult because I do actually think both of you did incredibly well in your final rounds, but I will actually have to give it to the opposition side, the Ming Nam.
All right. This is a close game. Very, 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 very close. I know, Hugh, I made you last because I love putting you on the spot. So Hugh, your 10 points are going to be extremely significant in this round.
All right, so it's hard, and as usual, when it's hard, which means the moment I'm talking right now, I don't know which team will get my 10 point yet. With the rebuttal part, I think the proposition team bring in a valid point. Yes, you keep talking about like how criticism attract more public attention, but I think the extra rebuttal you gave in this particular round is about when it's criticism and obstruction, it invites more focus on the argument rather than on the problem at core. I think that is a very valid rebuttal as well. I do agree with the fellow judges that not just on your team, but on both teams, what happens after the rebuttal is a little bit recycling of all the ideas that have been brought up through the first two debaters. I appreciate the effort of you and you as well, trying to clash the two ideas, really confrontation between the two ideas, and really start to pull out a lot of comparatives, which is something that we have been looking for. And I think in the third round, both of you did that. Not perfectly, but I appreciate the effort, right? When it go to the proposition team, yes, you bring back the whole thing about criticism, so it's not a new rebuttal for me. Yes, the other team has tried to address, not 100% successfully, but it's not a new rebuttal for me. When you go to the resolution, it's the 3 point that you bring back, which is more awareness, international coalition, and creating pressure for the government to change. So it's the same 3 ideas, and that is the reason why it's very hard for me to judge. There's very little, there's almost like little to no enrichment and further explanation or really bring the first and the second arguments up to the next level. My 10 point will go to the team that at least throughout the 3 debaters give me a more cohesion in their argument with the 3 reasoning that I can see clearly developing slightly from number 1, number 2, number 3, and I still can recall that structure of 3 arguments consistently throughout, and my 10 point go to the opposition team.
All right. Nam, you heard it from the judges.
Yeah.
You took the extra 10 points. I think you're probably feeling pretty good right now.
Yep, I'm sure I am.
But, Oi, you're down 10 points. However, we still do have the final reply speech. So contestants, thank you so much. Please return back to your seats. I know right now things are extremely close. However, and I'm not sure if you guys are fully aware of, if a team loses tonight, there is still a chance for that team to move on to the semifinals. So keep that in mind. We'll give you some time for the final reply speech, but please remember that. That's very, very important. And for the viewers at home, currently right now, Team Vanilla, they have 40 points. Team The Champions has 50 points. We have the final reply speech coming up to you right after the break.
Furthermore, people that are indifferent to climate change will be lost in information. Thus, they tend to focus on the argument itself rather than focusing on our main problem, which is climate change.
On our side, we focus on increasing awareness worldwide as well. Not a single country that will make a difference when it comes to combating climate change.
There's very little, there's almost like little to no enrichment and further explanation or really bring the first and the second arguments.
Welcome back to Debaters Season 2. Currently, we have the final reply round. And Team Vanilla has 40 points. Team The Champions has 50 points. However, in the reply round, we have 15 more points to give. And at this point, it is a very, very close match. Without further ado, please let me welcome the contestants. So from Team Vanilla, please welcome Lei Min Hui Zhang. From The Champions, please welcome Fan Lei Tai Ang. Okay, the final reply speech. And I know you hate when I ask you, how are you? But I gotta ask this right now because it's a close game. Saying, oi, how are you?
I am still nervous.
Yeah, I would be too if I was in your shoes. Because you have to get all 15 points to win this, to move on to the semifinals. Unless you guys are the wild card, you can still move on if you do lose. So very, very nervous. Okay, Hang Oi. Are you gonna change your speaking style for the final reply speech?
Then you have to wait for it to know about
Okay. Because while you are giving your final reply speech, I'm going to speak with the producer and then find out who does the translations for this and then get their feedback for you.
Sure.
Okay?
Thanks. I would appreciate that.
No problem. I'm sure they have a lot to say too. But girls, for the final reply speech, it's a little different. You have 2 minutes to deliver your speech and POI is not open. Opposition team, you will be going first. Proposition team, you will be going second. Do you understand? And let the final round begin.
From the very beginning of the debate, side propositions seem to make many strategic mistakes. First of all, you give us a lot of assumptions and claims without further explanation that has already been tackled by my previous speakers. But second of all, you refuse to answer our point of information and also lacks engagement with our ideas about why proposals are less likely to be accepted. And even when they are accepted, how are they very less effective without the acceptance and awareness of the vast majority of people? But more importantly, in order to identify who's the winner of today's debate, I'll be answering 2 main questions. Which side protect more stakeholders and which side actually solve the problems of climate change? The first question, on your side, you fail to solve the problems on every single level. First of all, on the individual level, you fail to ensure the awareness of people about the issue itself and about the urgency to change. But even in your best case scenario, when individuals actually acknowledge of the change, you fail to make effective policies, as we have already pointed out how proposals are very less likely to be adopted considering all the economical and political factors. But third of all, on an international level, you didn't even mention about how climate change can be solved without having an impactful policy on a global scale. Meanwhile, on our side of the house, we successfully raise people's awareness and urge them to start acting better towards the environment, and we also successfully create impactful policies in both national and international scales, which makes us the only side to be able to somehow reduce the climate change effectively. Reaching the one and final goal of this climate change movement is in order to reduce the climate change. And for those reasons, side opposition definitely take today's debate home.
I'll start my reply speech by saying that we have had examples about the country of Netherlands, about the Green New Deal established by the Congresswoman in the United States, and therefore our impacts are on an international scale. And we'll start comparing the best picture of the opposition side and the worst picture of our side, the proposition side. On the opposition side's case, people prioritize criticism and obstruction of other policies over constructive policies which will affect the people and therefore will affect the government and which will place a pressure on them. The criticism may be harsh, therefore authorities will be more reluctant to change because the fight against climate change is a connected chain and you can't drop a single chain of it. You can't just criticize one change and hope they will all change all together. The worst picture on our side will be having constructive policy proposals will push the fight towards the eradication of climate change globally on an international scale. In the long run, we can raise awareness for the public since we have constructively developed the policies. They can be contemplated by politicians and the authorities. We have given more policies than your side, and we are certain that we are the winners of this debate. Thank you.
We're done. That's it. But Zhang, I'll get with you in just 1 second. Ang. But do you know Rap Viet?
Yes, I know.
You should sign up for Rap Viet.
That's actually my favorite show, though.
Really? You should. Please consider that. But you're done.
Yes.
That's it. You guys are done. And now, do you think you got all 15 points?
I think that depends on the judges, but I'm looking forward to the best.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this is going to go. But in this round, we do not hear from the judges. So I think that's probably a good thing because the judges have talked so much tonight. So thank you, judges, for the silent round. But contestants, thank you so much. You're officially done. So please return back to your seats. So again, thank you, teams. And today's motion has finally come to an end. However, the final result will be announced after the break. So welcome back to the final result of tonight's show. And I think everyone right now is very curious to know the results. I won't drag this on too long. We'll kind of just jump into this. So currently, Team Vanilla, you need all 15 points in order to win tonight's show. You guys, on the other hand, just need one judge to give you 5 points. All right, the first 5 points are going to go to the proposition team, Team Vanilla. So currently 45-50. The second 5 points, they are going to go to the proposition team, Team Vanilla. So it is currently tied, 50-50. Take a deep breath, okay? Let me double check so I don't make any mistakes. The winner of tonight's show with a total of 55 points goes to the opposition team, the champions. So you guys, again, thank you so much. In Team Vanilla, there is still a wild card for the semifinals. So it does not mean you're done with the show just yet. And this is probably one of the closest games that we've had so far. And it's going to be very difficult for the judges to determine who is going to move to the semifinals as the wild card. So again, thank you guys so much. Both teams, you did a fantastic job. So again, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, British University Vietnam. Thank you so much. For the audience, contestants, judges, the viewers at home, have a great night. Take care. See you later. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.